I'm here with Karen Maex, who is Rector Magnificus of the University of Amsterdam, and in Europe, well known for her strong opinions about digital policies and how universities are supposed to navigate the digital landscape. So, Karen Maex, welcome to you. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's excellent that you took this time to speak about these issues. They're important in Europe, but they're certainly also globally important. And much of the discussion, as we understand it in the Netherlands, has been around this idea that universities should be digitally autonomous. I think the phrase is academic digital autonomy. Can you explain what that is and why it is important?
Yeah, I think we should at first think very deeply about what effects digitalization can have on the way we work, the way we do research, the way we teach, everything. And just let me make it very clear, digitalization is there and has a lot of advantages, but the framework in which we work needs some attention. And I think one of the main aspects of a university or the main good is that we are independent, and we just have to make sure that we, of course, can use digital information and can work with it, but that we can do this in a way that we do not become dependent. And that's actually an issue that is not only an actual issue for us. It's everywhere. There's also many good information available, and so if I would make a definition, I take the definition of the World Economic Forum. Digital sovereignty refers to the ability to have control over your own digital destiny, the data, the hardware, the software that you rely on and create. So that's a very broad definition, but it is extremely important to take that very seriously. And if we want to translate that, if I may, to academic sovereignty, because that's what we are for, it is important that we are able to autonomously take decisions on policies, on content and organization, related, of course, to our research and education. So this autonomy is essential and is a little bit in contrast with the dependencies that we are building up in the world. And I can refer also to our honorary doctor of the University of Amsterdam, Shoshana Zuboff. She has written a very nice book about that. And she also defines independency. And just to make it also accessible for everyone, she says there are 3 levels for independency, and you have to have them all 3. That is about who knows, who decides, and who decides who decides. So you are only independent if the 3 levels are open. And that's the same can be translated to what is relevant for universities. And so in a sense, if you narrow down to the academic world, we are at risk to some extent. So, and we have to find a way to work in this digital world, have the right tools, and have also the right protection, so that we can continue to do what we are supposed to do.
If I understand also the discussion in the Netherlands and elsewhere, there's this sense of urgency, no? There's this sense of, it's now or never that we can guarantee it, because we had for instance, the experience with academic publishing, where who knows, who decides, sort of slipped out of the control of universities, and the open science movement to take that back. Why is it now? Why is it now that it's important to act?
Why is it now? Because, as I said, data and the digital has a much deeper impact in what we do and threatens our independence much more than the on-paper publications for which we were already in discussion with the private editors. And there was already a lot going on at that time, but we also have to keep in mind many of these publishers become data houses. So they are also going into a transition, and the problems we had, or the discussions, I should say, the discussions we had between the universities and the publishers is actually now become even more fundamental on what we are doing, because we're talking now about data and about software and about a new way of working in the universities and in this world.
So if I understand you correctly, this is really about the turn to the data economy, and do I understand it correctly as well to say this is not, it's not only the data that is produced, let's say, by experiments or by research, but it's really the metadata. It's the data about universities. It's the data about also education data, metadata.
Yeah, metadata are really crucial, and also because this is metadata are there to find, to make data findable, and of course this is a very big transition, and yeah, this impact is enormous. It defines, actually, the digital world redefines the real world. So all the interactions change. And it's for me and for many with us, because in the Netherlands we have done already a lot of in trying to understand the problem in the first place and then see what steps we can take. But digital sovereignty is a precondition for academic independence. And the question is now not how can we make this a few steps better? It has to be really digital sovereignty. So in that sense, we have to find another way to look into that. And that is more than the financial lock-in that we had before with the editors. This is just much more, because it is really action. It's an action. The digital gives action to what we are doing, and that's where we have to look how we can shape this new world.
Yeah, and just to keep on with that parallel to what happened with academic publishing, because I understand that is part of the motivation behind this. So there you had the financial login, you have to pay for your subscriptions, but the login digitally is much more massive. If I also link it to your definition of autonomy, in the sense that it's not only about, how much do we pay and who do we pay to, but it's about ownership of the machines, it's about ownership of the software, it's about
Indeed.
control of the data. So it's a much more massive endeavor that we're actually talking about. Yeah. Or am I exaggerating it?
No, you are not exaggerating it. This is what is happening indeed. It's a major step into the sovereignty of universities. So we are giving away our position to some extent.
Yeah. And you think that is happening? We are, if we continue like we've done in the past, we will give away.
Yeah, but we are not going to continue as we did in the past. So let's make it very clear. And we have also discussions with the partners, but especially also among other universities. There's actually a lot that has been done just to taste a little bit, to find out what should we do and how can we make this work. And at the UvA, we started already very soon with ways to understand what is sovereignty and what is data, and how can we make that fit with us. Also, all the universities in the Netherlands now, they are together in the UNL. And we have discussed this also many times. Also looking into what is, how can I say, what is ethical in this new world? What should we want? How do we do this? There's many discussions among the university people on this topic. And we have also our Dutch government also has picked this up. They also have now knowledge and background that is digitalization changes the way we teach and learn. And so they have put it now also on their agenda. But this is not an aspect of one country. This is something that we have to do over the whole world. This is just a big change in how we have to work.
Yeah, I see. So you feel that in the Netherlands, the question you had in the beginning, who knows, that you've gathered some of the knowledge. Could you perhaps give some of concrete example of things you found out in terms of how dependent you are on externals in terms of digitalization and what you could do about it?
Well, you just said, just the fact that there's several partners, there's several editors. They are not going to make their work interoperable. I mean, because their way of working is that they compete with their competitor. Yeah, that's why they are a competitor. So there's many things that make this very different. So they also, a short-term risk is that you get into a financial lock-in. I mean, you are partnering with one big group, and then they can ask unreasonable prices because you are already financially in a lock-in. Or so. Also for platforms, we have to pay platforms and for storing our data, and they are using our data anyhow. So this just doesn't work. And also there is a lack of innovation, and we are not in control of this innovation. So this is a major change, and we have to find out how we do this.
Yeah. Yes. So what you say is that because you can't take your data out and use it with a different provider, you don't have interoperability, as it were. And you get financially locked in. It's a monopoly, and they can ask whatever money they want because they have the data. So it's a very I mean, it's sovereignty, but it's also a concrete economical question.
Yes, that's right, and we are openly talking, to them about that, and there should be ways to get out of this limbo. But it will need new insights, new legislation, and then we can go forward, because we are not going to sell our authority and our independency.
Yeah. You say legislation yourself, and I know you've been a big proponent that this should be dealt with through a regulatory framework.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that and how that deals with both the national scene, but of course in Europe we have the European Union that very much regulates this. What kind of regulatory framework is needed?
First of all, we have to agree about the principles, that how we want to work with data, and how we want to also algorithms, because the algorithms to find the data are, if you cannot find the data, then you don't have them either. So that's we need open standards, we need open collaborations, and we need to build up this academic sovereignty, just because the world will be governed in that way. So that is what we are going for. We have in the Netherlands, and actually I had a meeting about that this morning already, that we have feasibility studies that if we would make, for instance, an open knowledge base, as we call it, like an infrastructure ourselves, where we can put our data. Part of the data is, of course, in the universities themselves, and some are shared. So if we have an open base that can be used for that, this means investments, public investments to do that, and we have to look through the whole chain how we can make sure that we have a public system that we can use, and then how this relates then to the private providers. This is a very difficult discussion, how we can do that. And we're not so far at this moment. We first have to know how we can build up the public infrastructure that we need in a safe way.
So it's quite a complex architecture. So the open standards, and I suppose open standards, the way that academia works, would in some way need to be global open standards, something that's done not just in Europe if we want full interoperability. Or would you foresee sort of
I think
European data spaces, something like this?
Yeah, but I do believe that if we can make big steps in Europe at this point in time, then other areas will definitely also learn from that, and the universities all over the world have the same type of problem. And I think with the, for instance, in the European legislation, there's a lot going on, and I'm very thankful for that commissioners take that up. We need independency of academic. Actually, a university is not really a concept. Well, it's a concept, but it's not a legal concept. That's already one thing. We have to find out how this is being done, and that starts also with the recognition of academic independence in the digital laws. And we're working also to see how it can be done and how it can be added to the current legislation. We have to amend legislation like all the digital acts that the commissioners have made in Europe, and these are very, very good acts because there's also a world outside universities, and it's a good regulation. Unfortunately, it does not work for universities because we have to be much more open and much more secure, I would say, to take our academic role. And but there are discussions about that also in the European Parliament. People are starting to understand, but of course, I do believe that we need to have a public infrastructure. And also, when we are discussing as universities with these on digital tools, we have to really make sure that in the conditions we put things very clearly. So we just also in Europe, as we have in the Netherlands, we try to set something up locally. Also in Europe with the GaiaX and EOSC, that these are steps in the right direction, but it's not enough so far.
No. So just to sum it up a little bit, so we have in Europe this avalanche almost of digital regulation, to regulate big monopolies, to regulate social media, etc., etc. And the experience from the university sector has been, this is all good and well, but you forgot that we existed and that we will be impacted on it. And so there's a discursive part here that says, you need to recognize the universities are actually a thing and they might have special needs. But once that is done, your vision is you have regulation that ensures the autonomy, and you have that public, and we might move to that balance between the public and private, because the examples you mentioned, the Gaia X or EOS, which is sort of European public cloud initiatives that ensures that there are European cloud providers and they're not all non-European. But let's say opponents to that view would say we saw through the pandemic that only private companies have the flexibility and the investments that they can sort of scale up quickly and to what we need. So we cannot ignore private providers. Also, you mentioned the innovation that goes on in educational technology, etc. So you say public investment is really necessary, and the public investment in infrastructure is crucial. But what is the balance here, public and private?
But let me make it very clear. We at the University of Amsterdam and also in the whole of the Netherlands and in Leru, we are all working together with big companies or with the private world. That's for sure, because that's what we are for. That's for the innovation. That's not the point. But we need. So I think whatever we can do together, it's fine. But it should fit with our how can I say, our ground, that we are open and that we share information with everyone, and that should not be turned into our face again. So that's the point. So we have to find ways to do that. We have I also personally have had this type of discussions with the big companies about this, and of course it's not that they don't give a good service, but they by giving the service they limit our academic freedom and our openness, and that's the point we have to solve. And I think with the regulation, and then afterwards with good contracts, that will work. For instance, in the collaborative work with the companies, universities have a kind of standard contract that everything we do is open. So we have achieved that with them, and still they want to work with us. So that's not the point. But here we are now in a different playing field.
I think we're still in that discussion. How much can we rely on public investments, and how much is it big global companies that deliver the service? And I think when you from a global perspective, that is really a very important discussion. Can I come back to something you say about ethics?
Sure.
And all data is open. Can you say something about maybe the limits? Because if we imagine, let's say, that all the data that is possible to gather on, let's say, Zoom or Teams or another online education tool, and you gather that and you make it open, are there ethical privacy limits to what kind of data is going to be gathered and what kind of data should be shared?
I think it's important that we offer education to students. For us, it's important to be able to, as we do also in live education, to be responsible for all our students. Yeah. So of course we will, and whatever we do and learn from that, we publish. So we make everything public. We can do research on this. You could even do research on what platforms do with students, for instance. That could be a research project, of course. And we could do some of these things even together with companies. That's not the point. Yeah. The point is that we have to remain independent, and we don't want to belong to one pillar. For instance, a big. We want also a variety of. If we work together with big companies, we always have a variety of companies. So and the research is basic research. So and has all the aspects of basic research, and we publish then the results.
So what you say is, gather the data, get the data, let's do research on it.
Of course.
But nobody should own that data. You shouldn't pay something to get that back.
Of course. And we can learn a lot. We can learn a lot by doing that, of course. But with the rules and the respect of the different partners engaged.
So really, it's about a holistic approach to digitalization where you have many stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
And
That's
openness is the thing that ensures the sovereignty.
And no manipulation, because algorithms can always be manipulating, and so these choices on, for instance, on how you want to deliver your research, these options and choices have to be public and have to be also a decision of a university.
So you say, also the decisions have to be public. So you need to a large degree of transparency.
Yeah, of course. I mean, university work is completely transparent. We publish everything that can be of the research that we do. Also, on the education that we do is public education. So
yeah. So really, there's a clear political project that basically encompasses the whole global knowledge community. I think we came through the questions pretty well. Is there something you want to add?
Well, maybe it's not only the big platforms and where we all going to store the data, and but it's also, I mean, we have to share data also. Also for research, we have to be able to share data in a public and safe way, because we work together with many people in the world, and actually, that in a digital world there should be no borders.
So that's not only the standards and the sort of the fair
it's
data,
research data,
but it's research data.
Yeah,
that's also protected, so you can save it, you can share it in a way that is not tangled with or changed or things like this.
Yeah, and that's what we're working on, as well as some of our researchers have set up a research project about that, and that's also, I mean, the changes that digitalization brings affects us really in the depth of who we are, and that is for the university, but that's for many aspects of our society. And I think we have to be really inventive in seeing how we can do that.